Scott Kveton. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Urban Airship. Urban Airship has been around for about 2.5 years, and we provide a set of services for app developers to help them do things like push notifications, in-app purchase, subscriptions, and we help them do it on a variety of different platforms. So if you're ESPN and you want to send sports scores to users, you'll leverage our infrastructure. Or if you're Warner Brothers or CBS, all those kinds of folks leverage our infrastructure to get more out of their installed app base.
How did you identify the opportunity?
One of my co-founders, a guy named Stephen Osborne, was doing some contracting back in May of 2009. And he was doing it for a company actually here in town, Subatomic Studios, who had this just great game called Field Runners. And they wanted to add push notifications and in-app purchase to their game. So he came in and helped them do it from a contract basis. And he sort of said, well, this is kind of hard if you're an app developer to try and build this sort of cloud components. So we identified it as a business, and then from there we decided, hey, geez, let's try and ship this as a real product and get it out there. So we launched the company 30 days later. We founded the company in May of 2009 and launched with a product, SDK, downloadable docs, and a working API 30 days later.
Can you share some of your metrics in terms of volume of usage?
Yeah. So we've got about 35,000 customers today. And it's folks like ESPN, New York Times, Groupon, Living Social, you name it, are using us. And then we're on about 50,000 apps across the different app stores. We've sent just shy of, we just passed yesterday 13 billion notifications. And in terms of sort of scale and volume, this month we'll do just shy of 3 billion. So it's scaling it at a pretty frenetic pace. We're on about 350 million devices to the tune of 475 million app installs. So there's overlap obviously on devices for our customers. But the growth has been just phenomenal, and we have a lot of challenges that I put in the category of nice to have, which are hiring, scaling infrastructure, solving difficult problems that only a few other companies have ever had to try to tackle, and we're having a blast. So,
how did you become an entrepreneur? What's your background?
So I've been in technology for about 15 years. Cut my teeth at Amazon at the start of the century in the distribution centers doing system engineering stuff. Got really active in open source, open technology, co-founded the open source lab, and then helped co-found the OpenID Foundation. And all of those things, the open collaboration and building, companies or organizations was just sort of something I always wanted to do. My first CEO gig was Jan Rain. Learned a lot of tough lessons there. But that was to me said this is what I'm going to do. I had a little foray into a couple of us decided to start a business selling bacon on the internet. And no matter where I go, no matter what I do, I'll just say, oh yeah, and I sold bacon on the internet, and oh now we're running this thing, and they're like, whoa, wait, what? And yeah, we did. Started the business in about 21 days. It was myself, Jason Glaspie, and Michael Richardson, and that was just fun. I mean, it was really fun. Ran it for about a year, sold it, wrote a book, and that for me was this whole mantra of like, do you know if there's a market there? Well, you don't. Okay, well, launch it as quickly as you can, get a minimum viable product out, and then see, right? And if they don't, shutter it 30 days later. So worst case scenario, you're out a couple $1,000 in 60 days of your time. So.
Let's talk about funding. Is the complaint about lack of funding in Portland a myth?
No, I don't think it's a myth. I think that people, the job of a CEO or a co-founder is to go find funding, and you have to go beg, borrow, and steal to get that funding. And we, for the first 9 months of the business, had to bootstrap and had a really tough time fundraising. And I remember in the fall of 2009, we'd been in business for maybe 3 or 4 months, and I went on the fundraising trail, and I was literally 0 for 30. And so that was really tough. So we, at the end of November, we got really close with some folks, and then everybody just kind of said, yeah, no, we're not going to do it. So we kind of, it was the end of November. We had a bunch of customers. We were making revenue, and that was great, but we wanted to go fundraise again. So we sort of had to hunker down for, the rest of November through December and sort of put a plan together. And so then I had, 10,000 meetings lined up the first week in January, and my very first meeting was with Puneet, who's a partner at True Ventures. And it just sort of was one of those fairy tale stories. You show up, they meet you, they're like, yeah, this is great, let's meet the partners, and then you get a term sheet the next day, or actually while you're sitting there at the meeting. So I was 1 for 31, right? But since then, we've raised a B round from Foundry Group, who's Brad Feld, Jason Mendelson, Seth, Ryan, all those guys. And then we just closed a C round from Intel, Salesforce.com, and Verizon. So it was a strategic round. So we've raised about 22 million.
So mentors are so important. Who are some of your mentors and how did they help you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of my favorite mentors is a guy named Pete Grillo, who's actually on my board now. He's the co-founder, he's the founder and CEO of Iterazi, but he's been in the tech scene for years. And his last exit was a company called WeSync back in 2001, which he sold to Palm when Palm actually still mattered. And we got to know each other through our mutual love of pork products, not through startups. And pretty soon I started talking about startups and just started bouncing stuff off of him and realized he was really, really insightful. But what I really liked is when I asked him to be an advisor to Urban Airship, I thought he'd be like, oh yeah, this would be great. Yeah, it'll be really fun. He's like, I gotta think about that. So then he called me up the next day and he said, here's the deal. I will agree to be an advisor, but it like forever will change our relationship. And I'm never not gonna call it like I see it. I'm gonna be tough on you when you might not wanna hear that stuff. And it, sure enough, he has been. But I take all of it in stride because it's all feedback for the business. And that's, if you can't take feedback, then you shouldn't be in, running a startup. And then the other one is a fantastic guy by the name of Clint Richardson. Clint's here in town. He's ex-Apple. He was the CMO for TiVo. He ran T-Mobile UK and recently just got done with a COO gig at AVG in Prague, and he just moved back here. And so I've been spending, I said, hey, would you be an advisor? He said, yes. However, if I'm going to do it, I want to dedicate time to this, and I need you to dedicate time to it. So we're now meeting every single week for 90 minutes, and it's an awesome, awesome way for me to completely unplug from email and just sit there and go through 3 key things: one strategic item, one operational item, and one board item. And in 90 minutes, we cover all the different parts of the business, but I can bounce stuff off him in a way that I can't with other people. And it forces me to step back and think for 90 minutes a week. And that's been just insanely, insanely helpful for me.
So our audience is founders, entrepreneurs, always looking for advice about when they should quit their job, should they dedicate their time to the startup, should they keep at the startup if it's in a struggling mode? Any advice that you would offer to those folks?
Yeah, I think the first one is sort of burn the ships. When Cortez came to the New World, he burned the ships, and because of that, people were sufficiently motivated to kind of get the job done. And that same thing is true. It's really hard to keep your foot in maybe agency work or contract work and try and do your startup. You need to have that sort of motivation that is like, oh, I can just always go back into this. I think the other one is, and you ask entrepreneurs just about anywhere you go, there's like, what was it? Were you a genius? Did you just see the market really clearly? And really it's like, no, you're just either you're too dumb or too whatever not to give up. When we didn't raise funding in fall of 2009, that was a tough time, right? Because we literally were getting revenue in, and then the 4 of us would sit down and we'd be like, okay, well, how much do you need this month, right? Like, it was one of those things, and that's a really tough thing to go through. Like, you really have to believe in this. And the other thing is we had key things happening with the business. Like we had customers, we were making money, which told us, yeah, there's something there. So, sticking with it is one of those things that just you have to do.